out there. Welcome to the Hello, everyone out there. You're listening to the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Tersh Blissett. Today's episode, we have an awesome guest on here. It's kind of fitting, and I was saying this earlier, but today we're in the midst of a massive pandemic with the coronavirus, and it's terrifying at the same time as ignorance is bliss, and we're trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, and we're just like, oh, let's just do remote stuff. So on today's show, it's really cool to have Andrea Fryrear. Is it
There you
Fryrear?
go.
Okay.
Fryrear. There you go. Got it.
Fryrear. Thank you. Andrea is on the show today, and she's the co-founder of AgileSherpas. Did I get that right?
You got that one
You're
right?
giving me some
Yep.
tongue twisters today. No, I love it. And it's really cool because we're going to talk about agile marketing, and we all know that being agile is the companies that are going to survive through this pandemic. They have to be agile, and they're going to have to be someone who can pivot and make changes and still survive, with that. And this is the world's longest intro, by the way, and off-topic intro. But I just seen this post yesterday about this virus is going to bankrupt more companies than it's going to kill people, because people aren't used to being agile. They're not used to being able to do these things and pivot very quickly. Some of our companies, some of our listeners, they are third and fourth generation companies, and it's just the way we've always done it. That's how we do it. That's why we do it. It's because the way we've always done it. And we may have 30 people in the office, or even 10 people, 5 people in the office. That's just how we've always done it. And instead of working remote, and now, so that's kind of a new thing for a lot of people. But today we're going to talk about 3 different ways, or 3 agile marketing myths, and we're going to hopefully kind of debunk those myths a little bit, maybe. And
Yep.
I didn't actually preface that. I didn't ask that question beforehand. I'm just assuming. But anyways, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, so I'm a digital marketer by trade. I've been doing marketing for about 15 years in different capacities. Most recently, I specialize in content marketing. So I do a lot of writing, a lot of video, content strategy, and things like that for AgileSherpas. And that's what I did before I started the company. AgileSherpas is about 3 years old, and we take the combination of our own marketing expertise and experience and combine it with a very nerdy passion for agile ways of working, and help marketers apply those existing agile frameworks that were so popular and well received in software, and turn them into things that work for the marketing profession.
Oh, really cool. Okay, so what does Sherpas mean?
It's a good question. So Sherpas are the people that guide you up a mountain. They're primarily in like Nepal, and they are in the, not the Alps, the like Mount Everest. You need a Sherpa to help you get up to the top. So they're someone who knows the path, and they can guide you on your journey.
You're okay. You got fancy on me. I see. So you're an agile guide through
Yes.
marketing. Okay, I like it. I like it. Um, that's really cool. I'll never forget it now. And
Good.
neither will anybody else that's listening, I'm sure. So the myths that we're going to talk about, let's just dive right in, because we've already been talking for a minute. What's that first myth that we have that you see a lot?
Yeah, I think that probably the big one is that Agile is just all about speed, and there's actually a lot more to it. Certainly, an Agile team or an Agile company will be able to go faster, but a lot of that comes from the fact that they focus themselves very carefully on doing the right work at the right time. And
Mm,
so it's not so much that they can move super quickly, it's that they are exerting all of their effort single-mindedly in one value adding activity or project. And then as soon as that thing is done, they move on to the next one. And what all of the research on like multitasking and things has shown us is that when we work on lots of things at the same time, they all take way longer than they need to. And
hmm.
so by having a system that forces you to focus on executing work, it looks like everything goes super quickly, but it's really just that you limited the amount of things you're doing at any given time.
So with that, are you saying that don't start another task until one task is completely finished, or um, don't try and do two tasks at the same time? Or like if you're doing this task, like completely pause and stop this task and then bring up this task.
Yeah, I think both can
Okay.
be super helpful. Um, there's one of the agile frameworks is called Kanban, Kanban. If you're not familiar with the spelling of it, it's a Japanese word, so it's a little bit
Definitely not
different from
English. I picked up on that.
yeah. Yeah. And so it's one of its kind of mantras is stop starting, start finishing. So instead of, it's like you were saying, take a task all the way to done before you pick up a new one. And sometimes that's not practical because especially if you're doing like creative work or you're,
Yeah.
trying to tackle a problem, you need to put it aside and come back to it at a later time. And so then, you might, like you said, deliberately pause and move to it, something else, and then come back to it, which is a similar principle. But that's far better than I'm really going to try to sit down and finish this blog post, but oh, look, here's a new email, and oh, what an interesting thing happening on Twitter right now, and you get too spread thin, and then that blog post that you could have finished in an hour if you sat down and did only that has now spread out to take your entire morning because you were jumping back and
Yep.
forth among things.
So here's where I get stuck on blog posts. First off, I'm a horrible writer, so I typically will talk and then have it transcribed. That's usually my go-to move there. Just for anybody that's listening and wants to know how I can put out content that doesn't read completely horrible. That's how. Uh, but whenever I'm actually going through the blog post and editing and doing all the SEO junk that you got to do, I get stuck as soon as it's time to make that image. And then it's like,
Mm.
oh, here we go. Like rabbit hole. We're going to fix all of our images now. And so that's where my multitasking ADD kicks in for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that leads nicely into a second myth for around Agile and in marketing especially, is that we kind of don't have a plan, right? That we're just working on whatever seems useful and good at any given moment. So your example of, I'm fixing this one image, so I might as well go fix the 50 other ones,
Mhm.
that are bugging me because they're not on brand or whatever the problem is.
Yeah, I changed my font, so my other fonts aren't really working, and this one's a little shade closer to orange versus gold. I'm gonna go change all my brand colors, and yeah,
Yep.
guilty. I've done
It's
it.
easy to do. Um, but we have this agile tool called a backlog, or you can also think of it just as a prioritized to-do list, right? And it's out there, and the prioritized part is the really important thing. So it's not just a brain dump of all the things that we could be doing. The top item is the highest priority, highest value thing that we could be doing.
Oh,
And
cool.
so what I tend to do, and I'm in that situation like you're describing, is I think, oh, I need to update these images. They're off brand, and I would like for them to be updated. So instead of going and doing that thing right then, I make a card for it and put it into my backlog, and I look at everything else that I've wanted to do, and I say, all right, is that really the most important thing I could be doing right now, or is it really like number 20 on the list? And
Probably
then
number
put it
20.
where right,
Yeah.
but then put it where it belongs, and your brain feels good about it because you captured it, and it's now documented in a place where you won't forget to do it.
Mm,
but you don't need to go chase that rabbit right this very second.
yeah,
And the
makes sense.
backlog is really powerful for doing that, because then all your work is out there and it's adjustable. We put it in a tool where you can drag and drop and move things around. And so as new things come up, you add them to the backlog, and maybe they are super important. And you need to send an email to all your customers about how you're dealing with a particular virus outbreak, and that's your top
Yeah.
priority item.
Yeah. That
But
one kind
the
of does need to
backlog is
pivot
cool for
pretty
that.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that backlog, is that something that we can get through you, or is that like, how does that even work? I haven't talked to you
Yeah.
about it.
Sure. So everybody can make a backlog in whatever tool you have. Like
Oh, okay.
if you're an analog sort of person, you can
I was
just
going
put
to
them
say,
on.
is this just a digital thing, or so you can sticky note it up?
You can sticky note it up for sure. Make sure you get the good kind of sticky notes, or they'll fall off your
Your
whiteboard,
screen.
and then your backlog is gone forever. Um,
Yes. I have a backlog decoration around each one of my monitors. So
oh
they'll
yeah.
have these attached to them, and
Uh-huh.
oh, I don't know if it's going to stick back. Oh, yep,
Uh-oh.
it did. We got the good ones.
um, but you can also do digital as well, now that everybody is gone remote, right, for the foreseeable future. My favorite simple tool, which is free, is Trello.
I was going to say,
Trello. Yeah. And it's super easy to attach files to the card, and you can put due dates on it and give it a little checklist and do all the things that you need to do. And I'll send you a link that you can put in the show notes. I've made like a free template that people can just
oh,
grab. And
that's exactly what I was going to ask. How many times have you seen somebody get on Trello and they're just like, holy cow, like, yeah, this is way, like my head just exploded. I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm just not going to do this.
yeah, it's like staring at a blank screen, right, with that cursor flashing at you, trying to like write
Yeah.
something, do something.
Yeah. And you're like,
So it's
I don't know. I quit.
yeah, yeah. So the board, the template board is a good place to start.
Sweet. That'd be awesome. So how about number 3?
Number 3, this is a good one. Going back to kind of the remote conversation, is people will think that if I'm not in the same room with the rest of my team or the people that I work with, that I can't be agile, that we have to be co-located for it to work, which is totally not true. There's a lot of really awesome things that happen when we are face to face and able to collaborate in that way. But the thing we're doing right now with being able to be on video
Yeah.
together, like I can see you, I can see your environment, and we can get a lot of the same context and the same nuance of facial expression and things that humans really need. And so being remote is not an excuse not to try these things out. And even one of the most powerful and common agile meetings is the daily stand up, where
Yeah.
you get all of your team together for
Mhm.
15 minutes at the start of the day to talk about, all right, what are we all working on, and what blocks have we encountered, how are we going to help one another. And this type of video interaction does just as well as if we
Yeah.
were in the room together.
Yeah, I really like that. And that is with us being completely remote, that's the number one thing that we get is um, you can't collaborate with each other if you're not sitting in the room next to them. If you can't overhear them. And to me, it's like, so you're telling me that because we can't have water cooler talk, we can't have a good company, an agile company. And it's funny because um, the problems that I hear companies have that'll have 4 or 5 office staff, we don't deal with those same issues because we don't have there's no time for us to gossip. Like there's not that interaction because we're very deliberate on Zoom calls and through Slack. We communicate through Slack through certain channels, and so everything is like we have a great culture and we have great relationships. We have a banter page in Slack so we can like goof off and stuff. But the um, gossiping is also a non-negotiable for us. But it's it just doesn't happen with us because of that. We don't have, there's not, when we have free time working back and forth, it's more of interacting, via Slack, or, we do phone calls too, but, and then Zoom calls, but it helps the culture out a lot more than it hinders it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's become kind of an agile myth because there is an actual line in the Agile Manifesto that talks about face to face being the most efficient and effective means of conveying information. But that was written like in 2001, and video
Right.
technology has come a long way
Oh yeah,
since then. And
absolutely.
so, yes, like the digital tools help a lot. We're distributed team at AgileSherpas as well, and so we rely on these things quite a bit. Um, and I think that making video the default way of communicating, as opposed to trying to convey complex information
Hmm.
over Slack, is definitely a good that's a good use of that value, right? The value on face-to-face interaction, because like we've all had a Slack message be horribly misinterpreted because
Oh
the
yeah.
people didn't they can't hear the connotation in your
Hmm.
voice or in your head, and so it comes across the wrong way.
Hmm.
But video should be able to alleviate that.
Yeah, and I have an extremely dry sense of humor, and so sometimes I'll say something or I'll type it in Slack, and most of my guys, they know very well that I'm not mad or anything like that, and they're like, "All right, Debbie Downer, like, pick it up," and I'm like, That's not even what I was saying." But whenever I went back and reread it, I was like, "Okay, I can see what you're saying," but it, usually, so now I'll even in Slack, I'll shoot a little video from my phone and put it right into Slack, and so they can actually hear the connotation in my voice and that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
uh, I find that people are full of excuses, pretty much out of fear of change. I feel
Mhm.
like, I don't know, maybe your opinion on that.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. We go in and a lot of what we do is help teams get started using
Hmm.
Agile. A lot of this stuff is quite simple to do for yourself, to set up your own personal Kanban board and limit your own activities. But then you start expanding out to a team, and now you have to agree on priorities and agree how you're going to work together and all these sorts of things. And so it gets more complicated, and you get a
Hmm.
lot of interpersonal dynamics. And especially sometimes we'll go to, you were alluding to kind of folks who have had their business for a long time. They've been in the family for a long time. And we find that it's those kinds of situations that tend to be the most change averse.
Yeah.
We've worked with a lot of financial companies in the recent past where people have this is their career. They've been at that company for 15 years, and that's always been done this way.
Hmm.
And when you start talking about changing process, what they hear is you're bad at your job and we're here to show you how bad at your job you are, when really it's like let's optimize and improve,
Yeah.
not with any like judgment around it.
Right. Totally. I agree with that. And so, like, we're a train dealer, and that's the air conditioning equipment that we'll install. And so my TM, he can work remote. He has an office at the building, and he goes there pretty much every day, but he has everything that he needs is all in the cloud, and so he can work remote. So, and they did that on purpose so that he could go to conferences and still be able to work. So he doesn't get out of actually doing his job whenever it's conference time and have to go, And so, but then whenever something like this, natural disasters strikes, he can still work from home as long as you have internet. You can work from home, or a remote office, or like a shared office space type thing. Have you seen companies like drastically reduce overhead expenses whenever they do that? Like cut down on the actual building size, even because, so we've found that we've had some people who um, can take phone calls and that type of stuff in other parts of the country that are really good, and they don't have to relocate here. We can just
Mhm.
hire them. They can do all of the stuff that we need done from their current home, or office there. Do you
Yeah,
see
and
that
that
very
lets
often?
you, yeah, it's quite common. And that lets you access a broader pool of talent, right? Because you're not just looking for people that could or would be able
Mm.
to come where you are. You can They stay where they want. Um, we have the same thing when we hire a new coach. We don't care where you're located if you're going to fly to clients anyway, so we don't care where your flight starts from.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think it helps when you're a smaller business that's trying to grow as well,
Mhm.
because you don't have the hard costs of office overhead and
Yep.
things like that. So you can invest that money in other ways that will set you up for success and let you find the right people to help you grow the business instead of spending it all on monitors and chairs and whatnot.
That's exactly what we've done. And so we've been able to buy like newer vans for our service experts instead of having to buy like older used vans. We're able to purchase new vans and their uniform, like all the stuff that we're able to do because we don't have that added overhead expense of $2,500, $5,000 a month of an office space and chairs and monitors and computers and stuff like that. Um, that's really cool. So how what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to learn more, connect with you, and all that good jazz?
Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing about a weird last name like Fryrear is I'm pretty easy to find. So
Same
I'm
with
Andrea.
Tersh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated
I'm
it as a
Andrea.
child, but now it's great because I can be lazy and just write Tersh.
So I'm at AndreaFryrear.com. You can find links to all the trainings and things that AgileSherpas does, as well as my books are there. Um, and folks who want to go a little deeper into some of the concepts that we've talked about, you can get. We have an online course that you can watch videos about
Oh,
how this all
sweet.
works. And then also there's a little Agile quick start guide that I can send to you. I'll send you the PDF of it so you can put it in the show notes. That'll show you how to like build that backlog that we were talking about
Oh,
and
that'd be awesome.
what's a Kanban board need to look like to work for you and really some of the practical stuff that is a lot easier to see an image of than rather just to hear me talk about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Especially when you first open Trello and you're like, oh, Miss Fryrear, what was it that she said I need to do? Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to implement Trello. And
Mm-hmm.
or whenever your office staff opens it and they're like, "What did you give me? Like, you want me to learn this?" Like, no. That's what mine would say.
Trello's nice because it's really just like digital sticky notes. Like they move like you would a sticky, and it's at least it doesn't have to be super complicated.
Right. It's only as complicated as you make it, and if you're anything like me, you're going to make it as complicated as possible. So,
Well, there's lots of complications for you to add if you so wish. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. Cool. Thank you so much for taking some time and spending it with us, especially with everything else that's going on hectic wise, and I look forward to learning more from you. And I'm definitely going to go check this out, and I'll add that PDF and everything to the show notes. But thank you again for coming on the
awesome.
show.
Thank you so much.
And if anybody has any questions, make sure you connect. And I will put all the connections and everything in the show notes. But click in the show notes. Uh, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Instagram, if we're not connected, make sure we're connected. And take a screenshot of this if you're listening to this on your phone. If you're listening to it on your monitor, take a screenshot of it and post it on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, wherever, and tag us. And I'll be sure to follow you back. But anyways, thank you again for listening to the Service Business Mastery Podcast. This podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. Until we talk again next time, have a great day.